Thank you so much for joining us. In 1 minute, tell us, if you will, why exactly you're running for re-election.
Well, Karen, one of the things I promised Oklahoma was that I was going to work very hard to get Oklahoma's economy back on track, to help Oklahoma's families get back on their feet. When I came into office, we had a $500 million shortfall, $2.03 in our bank account, and a very high unemployment rate at 7%. Because of our conservative principles, our pro-jobs, small business principles we've been able to initiate in Oklahoma with our policies, we've been able to drop our unemployment rate to 4.7%, grown our rainy day savings account to over $500 million, been able to put $150 million new dollars back into education, balance our budget, and those are the types of conservative principles that help grow the economy. So now we have the 4th fastest growing economy in the nation, and we also have the second, double what the national average is, of family income growth in the nation too. And those are conservative policies at work. And a vote for my opponent would be a vote for President Obama's policies.
All right, now our question phase. How will you ensure that Oklahoma schools provide a first-rate education for students?
Well, first of all, Karen, there's nothing more important than education for Oklahoma's future, not only for our children, but certainly for our businesses, and to have a prosperous economy. As I mentioned earlier, when I came into office, we had gone through a national recession. We had a huge budget shortfall. We had to grow Oklahoma's economy so we could have more money to put back into education. So I've been able to put $150 million new dollars back into education. My opponent has been proposing putting $35 million into education, so I put in a lot more, and he even voted against that. But we have to make sure that we have high academic standards, so I signed a law to repeal Common Core, to develop Oklahoma standards by Oklahomans, with both our teachers and our parents giving input into that, and to make sure that we have rigor in our classroom, that we have accountability, and that we have high academic standards. So all of our children will either be college or career ready to be successful. And as a mother of 6, and between my husband and I, we all want our children to do better than what we've been able to do as adults.
That's exactly right. Now, what steps will you take to strengthen and grow Oklahoma's economy?
Well, several things that we've already been doing. First of all, we've kept our taxes low. I've had 2 tax cuts since I've been in office. My opponent actually opposed those tax cuts. You know, we've been focusing on things like being more business friendly with lawsuit reform. I passed that. My opponent opposed lawsuit reform for small businesses. We've been able to do major workers' compensation reform, lowering workers' compensation insurance costs by 22%, saving businesses $200 million. My opponent opposed those type of pro-jobs growth business reforms that we've done. We've also stood up against the federal government whenever they do things that would harm our business climate, you know, like forcing the Affordable Health Care Act or Obamacare upon the state of Oklahoma. My opponent supports expanding Obamacare in our state, which I think would be very disastrous to our economy, and certainly already proving to be harmful to our businesses and our families. And so those are the type of conservative principles that we've been able to implement in Oklahoma to grow our economy. We want to continue that growth in our state so we can all have a great place to live, work, and raise a family.
And how will you address the staffing issues and overcrowding in Oklahoma prisons?
Well, I've addressed it in many ways. First of all, we were able to bring in a new director of corrections so we could change things. You know, there's an old saying that if you continue to think the way you've always thought, you'll continue to get what you've always got. So we had to change the thinking at the Department of Corrections. We have a new guy in there. I've done a total audit of spending and how we implement policy at the Department of Corrections. We've put more money in for pay raises for our corrections officers. And we've also reinforced what we call our Justice Reinvestment Act, to be smart on crime, yet tough on crime. In other words, keeping those that are a threat to society locked up, but also working on things like people that might have a substance abuse issue. And so I've worked hard to better improve our drug courts, put more money into mental health and substance abuse funding into our correction system and into mental health itself.
We have about 30 seconds left, and in that time, what should the state do to safeguard access to fair access, I should say, to quality health care?
Well, quality health care is very important. You know, one of the things I've done is certainly stand up against the Affordable Health Care Act. It's raised premiums. You can't keep your doctor if you like it. President Obama said your premiums would go down. That didn't happen. My opponent supports expanding Obamacare in the state. I've been able to put $5 million into rural residency programs to have more rural doctors for primary care. I've also worked to ensure and line up our Insure Oklahoma private health insurance state policy that we have, so that small businesses and lower income people can have better access to health care.
All right, and that is our time. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Karen.